In a small town, nestled between rolling hills and a shimmering lake, there lived a woman named Clara. Clara was known for her kindness, always the first to volunteer for community events, the one who baked cookies for the neighborhood potluck, and the friend who would drop everything to help someone in need. Her heart was as vast as the sky, but as time passed, she began to feel a subtle shift within herself. The weight of her commitments grew heavier, and the joy she once found in helping others started to fade, replaced by a gnawing sense of obligation. One autumn afternoon, as the leaves turned shades of amber and crimson, Clara found herself sitting at her kitchen table, surrounded by a stack of invitations and requests. The local charity needed volunteers for their annual fundraiser. Her friend Sarah was planning a birthday party and wanted Clara to organize it, and her neighbor asked her to help with a home renovation project. Each request tugged at her heartstrings, and the thought of disappointing anyone made her stomach churn. Yet, beneath the surface of her eagerness to help, a voice whispered that perhaps she was spreading herself too thin. As the days turned into weeks, Clara's schedule became a tapestry of commitments woven together with threads of anxiety. She rushed from one obligation to another, her days filled with tasks that left little room for her own needs. The peaceful moments she once cherished, sipping tea by the window, reading a book, or taking long walks by the lake, were replaced with a frantic pace that left her breathless. The laughter she once shared with friends turned into hurried conversations, and the joy of giving began to feel like a burden. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, Clara sat in her living room, staring at the flickering candlelight. She felt like a marionette, strings pulled taut by the demands of others. Just then, her phone buzzed with another message, a request from a colleague who needed help with a project. Clara hesitated, her fingers hovering over the screen. A wave of frustration washed over her, and for the first time, she paused to consider the possibility of saying no. The thought terrified her. What if her colleague felt let down? What if Sarah was disappointed? The fear of disappointing others loomed large, overshadowing her own need for peace. Yet, as she sat there, the weight of her commitments pressing down like a heavy cloak, Clara realized that saying yes to everyone else meant saying no to herself. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and imagined what it would feel like to reclaim her time, her energy, and her peace. The next day, Clara decided to take a small step. She texted her colleague, explaining that she was overwhelmed with her current workload and wouldn't be able to assist. As she hit send, a rush of anxiety coursed through her, but it was quickly followed by a surprising sense of relief. The world did not end. Her colleague responded with understanding, wishing her well. In that moment, Clara felt a flicker of power. Saying no had not only protected her time, but also opened a door to self-acceptance. Encouraged by this newfound strength, Clara began to evaluate her commitments more carefully. She took a moment to reflect on what truly mattered to her. She realized that while helping others was important, so was nurturing her own well-being. She began to say no to requests that drained her energy, and yes, to moments that filled her soul. She turned down invitations that felt obligatory, choosing instead to spend quiet evenings at home, indulging in her favorite novels and savoring the stillness. As the weeks passed, Clara noticed a transformation within herself. The chaos that once consumed her began to dissolve, replaced by a serene clarity. She found joy in the simple pleasures of life, like the golden hues of the sunset reflecting on the lake, or the laughter shared with a close friend over coffee. Each no she uttered became a shield, protecting her peace and allowing her to cultivate a deeper connection with herself. One day, while walking by the lake, Clara encountered an elderly woman named Agnes, who was known for her wisdom and gentle spirit. Agnes was sitting on a bench, feeding the ducks, and Clara felt drawn to her. They struck up a conversation, and Clara shared her journey of learning to say no. Agnes listened intently, nodding with understanding. "My dear," she said, her voice soft yet firm, "the power of saying no is not just about protecting your peace. It's about honoring your own worth. You cannot pour from an empty cup." Those words resonated deeply with Clara. She realized that by prioritizing her own needs, she was not being selfish, but rather practicing self-care. She began to understand that her worth was not determined by how much she could do for others, but by how she treated herself. With each passing day, Clara became more confident in her ability to set boundaries. She learned to communicate her limits with kindness and clarity, and those around her began to respect her decisions. As the seasons changed, so did Clara. The woman who once felt tethered by obligations now walked with a lightness in her step, her heart open to the world, yet fortified by her boundaries. She still volunteered and helped others, but only when it felt right for her. She discovered that true kindness comes from a place of authenticity, where one's own needs are met first. Clara's journey taught her that the power of saying no was not merely about rejecting requests. It was about embracing her own truth. It was a declaration of self-love, a commitment to her peace, and a reminder that her time was a precious gift to be cherished. In saying no, she found the freedom to say yes to herself, and in doing so, she cultivated a life rich with meaning, connection, and tranquility.